Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we have Lyle Lovett and Leo Kottke, and they're going to be playing through one of Lyle's tracks, You Can't Resist It. So let's get these two up on screen and see how they get on.
I like to sing, and of course there are a couple people I'd like to sing like. I'd like to introduce Curb Records recording artist. How's that? My friend Lyle Lovett.
And I'm going to stop it because there's a reason that I'm playing this video from the beginning, including the intros, because a lot of people, when they're watching top guitar players, and they always ask how much does a guitar player practice to get to this level? And Leo's a great example here, because while he's talking, it's almost like having guitar tourettes, in terms of he can't stop playing the guitar. And a lot of the time when top players are interviewed and they're asked, how much do you practice, how many hours a day, and then they say, I don't know because I don't count the hours. They are always playing. And we've got a great example here of Leo just constantly playing while he's talking. He cannot stop that hand from moving. And have a little listen in the background here, because Lyle's now going to be talking to the crowd, and again Leo is just playing all the time. He's playing a little, almost a blues progression with little bits of lead in there, all really lightly picked, but all happening at the same time that Lyle's talking to the crowd. So just one of those things to look out for before we actually get into the track.
Well, this is really a great honor for me. Met Leo a couple of years ago, opened for him at Poor David's Pub up at Dallas, before I ever had a record out, and I was just sort of the local opening act. And John Hay and I did a show a couple of months ago now up in St. Paul at the World Theater, and Leo was nice enough to come in and played a few songs with us, and it was really a thrill of my life. And to get to do this on Austin City Limits is even a bigger thrill, so thank you.
She was old enough to know better, and she was strong enough to be true, and she was hard enough to know whether he was smart enough to know what to do. And you can't resist it when it happens to you. No, you can't resist it when it happens to you. And you can tell your story, and you can swear it's true, but you can save your life for some other fool. And you can't resist it when it happens to you. No, you can't resist it when it happens to you.
I'm just going to jump in here to break down a couple of things. First of all, when Lyle comes in with that vocal straight off the bat, you know that we're in for a treat because he is so good vocally. The way that he's absolutely on pitch, instantly, just first note, absolutely there, and you can start to relax, you know, when you start to hear a singer and they're not quite on it and maybe take a little bit of time to get going, but Lyle's just straight out the gates with a great tone, great control. Of course, he's known for country, but there's blues in there as well, the way that he just tails off those vocal lines. And I know that in this performance, Lyle is just flat picking, really just putting in that rhythm work, and Leo is supplying those fills and melodic lead content as well. But Leo does not travel too far away from those root chords. He always lets those strings ring out, which is actually really tasteful because some players would go off into their own lead break and then you'd lose all of that rhythm side to it. You'd lose the fullness and it would struggle a bit. Whereas Leo, of course, is an absolute top player. So he's got that ability to blend lead with the rhythm at the same time. And it's not that Lyle can't play fingerstyle. If you've seen any of his other stuff, you would have seen him just a guy in a guitar with the thumb pick on and playing fingerstyle, really competent fingerstyle guitarist just in his own right, and then being able to sing over the top as well, by the way. And this isn't one of those performances that would have been massively rehearsed. It's just two musicians just going over this chord progression. It's not massively complicated. They probably just had a word beforehand. They both know the chord progression. We've just got an A here, D sus2 over that F sharp, and a G as well. So quite common, and that's why Leo pretty much firing from the hip here, just throwing in some really cool lead lines, but with that rhythm going on at the same time. And just getting back to Lyle's voice, he's got one of those voices that has such a great dynamic range because he can lean into his sound if he wants to, but then also when you hear that crackle in his voice almost, which they call vocal fry, and it gives it such a great expressive quality to have control over that element of the voice. And they've got that really low dynamic range to their voice that they can go that quiet and they can go that expressive with their voice, and sometimes they can get that vocal fry sound whilst leaning into it, therefore producing more of a distortion sound, but in a safer way than forcing it out. So then when you add great instrumentalists to great singers, you often get great performances because you've got such a dynamic range instrumentally and vocally. And that's what you get. The voice of the guitar or the piano or whatever is accompanying the singer, that dynamic range is then added to the dynamic range of the voice if the singer's good, which means that the singer can be really out and in your face dynamically, or they can really pull it down like Lyle does here, just having that control, taking it all the way down to vocal fry. Same with the guitar. You can be palm muted playing on those strings, or you can be more in your face, just really strumming out the chords aggressively. So it makes such a difference having dynamic range in performances, because that's what will make the song communicate to an audience and it will sound expressive. But let's get back into the video.
To know better, and she was strong enough to be true, and she was hard enough to know whether he was smart enough to know what to do. And you can't resist it when it happens to you. No, you can't resist it when it happens to you. And you can't resist it when it happens to you. No, you can't resist it when it happens to you.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you.
And there we go, and he's off. So a great performance all the way through, and I love it when we looked at Lyle there when he's singing on that final chorus, and Leo brought that dynamic down, and Lyle gave a little smile, because these little things that musicians do, that when you're locked in, and when like these two are here, where they're locked into each other's playing, so that's exactly what Lyle wanted Leo to do at that time, and Leo did it. And just bringing the dynamic down, of course, lets that vocal shine. And you might have been looking out for that, the way that Lyle in that last verse allows his voice to go into that vocal fry at the end of the lines, because it gives his voice that talking quality. It makes it so more relatable and gives you so much of a connection to a voice, because it is like talking to someone. And in that last chorus, Lyle then starts to lean into his vocal a little bit, pushing more air through those vocal chords, but it's not a breathy sound we're getting, it's a totally connected sound that he's got in his voice. So just leaning in with connected chords means that he then starts to get that more aggressive sound, but also gets more of a range dynamically from that vocal fry now into a totally connected sound. And I know I'm getting into the technical side of singing here, but great singers share so many things in common, exactly like great guitarists do. Guitarists have that ability to express through the instrument, through dynamics, in exactly the same way that a singer does. Of course, he's not giving a really heavy, distorted sound. There's an even wider range if you want it, if you want to start really pushing that aggressive sound of the voice and having that almost grainy quality, almost like overdrive on the guitar, but on your vocals, you can go from that really soft sound to that really in-your-face sound. Like I said, just like an instrument can go from a clean channel into that distortion channel. And Lyle was another one of those examples of a guy that didn't make it when he was really young. I think his first single that he released in 1986, he was actually 29, so he'd been playing and singing a while, and mostly known really as a songwriter, until he then got his break as a singer-songwriter as well. There are a lot of musicians who get their breaks very late in life, and people think that it's an overnight success kind of thing, whereas there are so many players that have been playing since the age of even 6 or 7 or 8, and then might get their break when they're 29 or 30, or in their mid-30s, or even 40s, or even later than that. You get some guitarists, some performers who've been playing their whole life and might not get well known until they're very advanced in years. And Lyle is one of those artists that has been so consistent throughout his whole career, just maintain that level all the time. And to put it in perspective, in 2007, that's when he got his highest album chart position in the US country charts. He got to number 2, and like I mentioned, his first single was released in 1986, so over 20 years later, he's still charting impressively with the music that he's producing. And also, by the way, a 4-time Grammy winner. One of those was for Best Male Country Vocal Performance, and another was for Best Country Album. So an award-winning singer-songwriter who just never lets that level drop, always produces such great material and great live performances. And if singing, songwriting, and performing isn't enough, he's also got credits for acting as well, over 20 different TV series and films, and also he was in a 2010 production of the Shakespeare play Much Ado About Nothing. So a very under-rehearsed performance here, but this is what you get with guys like Lyle, who can just play and sing and captivate a crowd by himself. When you then add Leo into the mix, supplying those fills, that extra rhythm work, and those lead lines as well, you just get a really special performance. But thank you so much for suggesting this one for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!